Newburgh colleagues, staff, I'm not going to make a habit of this. I'm really sorry. I'm not in person right now, but I just got too many things scheduled. I just can't make it happen. But this is really important that we get this information out. So, the writing push for the end of January into Feb is counter argument. Okay. And I can't talk about how important counter argument is to every content. Um, I mean, it's crucial for your critical thinking. It strengthens arguments. It makes arguments more thoughtful and it makes them more complete. I when I taught kids, I always said the opposite argument. That seemed to really click with them because like counter argument, that's a weird word. But I said, the opposite argument, the opposite of what you think, right, is usually the counter argument on some level. I know it's kind of simplistic, but you got to start there because kids really struggle with counter argument. Here's a sentence starter. Many argue that. However, I disagree because, I always taught rebuttal. Think Circa is not really talking about rebuttal. It's just making it all part of it, the counter argument, which is fine too if you don't want to separate that out. Um, I know we know this, but I think we need to take it to heart. 7 writing lessons per student with feedback equals that 2 years of growth. What we're doing here is a little bit extra. I want to stop for a second and point this out. 53% novice in writing. That's connected to all of us. Okay, and we made this cute little thing and we picked out our villain, but let's just take that away for a second and look at 53% novice in writing. Those are all our kiddos that we're all responsible for, right? So that should hit you in some way. We also, 93% of us said, let's do this. We're going to go for it. And we'll talk about that more, but let's just remember that for a second. Also, this is something Newberg's just doing, right? We're incorporating a warm up or a cool down, where it's just 2 minutes of our daily instruction. We take our content, we apply it to counter argument, and we just weave it in, right? It's a warm up, it's a cool down, but it's just this universal language across all contents. Okay, so talked about that. We're going to move on. What I'm talking about now is counter argument on a simplistic level. It's not really grade level yet, but it's a hard concept. It's not to the think circle level of teaching counter argument. Okay, I'll come back to that in just a minute. So I have some resources that are linked there. I have the Think Circa posters linked there as well. Here's just some examples. So this is way really basic, okay? And this is not even a good, valid argument, okay? But it's getting the concept out to him, for instance. So some may argue that a food chain is superior to a food web, but they're wrong because, and you have them finish that. Well, I actually gave them the counterclaim, right? And they're just finishing out and doing the rebuttal, making that whole thing a counter argument. Here's a social studies one. Some may argue that interactions do not shape civilizations, right? However, they are wrong because, and they can point out an instance that you've had to show them that that's wrong. Now, I know that's a specific grade, but I'm just trying to pull out some actual standards in social studies. This is not a very valid argument, right? Some may argue that Percy does not have an internal conflict when he finds out that Grover is half man and half goat. However, I disagree because on page blank it says this, and this proves this because of this, right? So just some ideas there. Now here is a more realistic counter claim and rebuttal. Okay, and I have this linked as well on the other sheet that I'm going to share. So some may argue that e-cigarettes are harmless. That's a real thing people do actually argue. However, and then you can see all the toxins and the metals that it might not be in the substance, but it's in everything else that they get into it, and it can cause shortness of breath and kidney disease. And so you can look into that. The little cutesy video, if you want to do this in advisory, just for fun, have the kids argue who's cuter, Gizmo or Grogu, or more commonly misnamed Baby Yoda. So just something to think about. I will touch on this real quick. Here's why this is a more elementary version, just in case you don't know, because this is this is like just getting the counterclaim and rebuttal out, the counter argument, right? But if you're going to do it to a high level, to a sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade level, then you would need to bring in the next component, which would be like some evidence to support the reason you disagree. Because the reason you disagree is going to be a claim, right? So the rebuttal is a claim of why you disagree with it. So then you'd have to bring in evidence. You have to bring in more reasoning to really back up your counter argument. But we're going to start off simple and just say some people argue this. However, I disagree because I think of this. And let's get the basic concept. I hope that wasn't too long. Thank you for your time. And oh yeah, we got to do this lift together, and it's really going to be helpful for our kids. That 53% novice, if we change that, it helps all of us. It helps all of our kids. It helps all of our contents. It helps critical thinking. So let's keep growing together.